Throughout my entire gaming career, if you can call it that, I've gone through more mice than I'm comfortable to admit. And no matter how good they seemed at first, I was never truly satisfied after a few weeks of use. Something always felt off, so I asked myself, what if I could build the mouse? The one where I could potentially go pro with without hardware holding me back. So that's when the journey really began. But to understand how I got there, we have to go back to the beginning. When I first got into PC gaming, I didn't know a thing about setups. I hadn't watched any tech videos, I had no clue what DPI meant, and I was just happy with whatever I had. That whatever was a $15 wired gaming mouse from Amazon, my first ever gaming mouse. At the time, I was still messing around on Scratch.com, coding little projects on my dad's 10-year-old Acer laptop and playing a game called Mech Arena. Then somehow, miraculously, I got my first gaming laptop, and that's when I fell into the rabbit hole of PC peripherals. My first real upgrade was the legendary Logitech G502 Hero, weighing in at a hefty 120 grams. At first, I loved it. It was so stable, it was so ergonomic, but then I tried flicking in Valorant. That was a big mistake. My wrist hated me. The mouse was just way too heavy to go fast, so I started looking again. The Attack Shark X3 Pro, a budget-friendly mouse that the internet hyped up to rival the G Pro X Superlight, but at the fraction of the price. I was sold instantly. When it arrived, I felt like I had finally reached my endgame mouse, or so I thought. A few months later, I stumbled across the Final Mouse Ultralight X. It was sleek and beautiful and $190. Way out of my price range, but it stuck in my head like a pipe dream. Then came my birthday. I was thinking about the Ultralight X again when I discovered the IPI float, only $42 and weighing in at just 43 grams. I added it to my wish list, and somehow I got it. For a while, I was satisfied, but then I got curious. I wanted to try a grip called the fingertip grip, and for that, I looked up the Optimum Tech ZeroMouse, a super minimal skeleton looking mouse. I saw the price and I knew I could not afford the real thing, but then I had an idea. What if I could make my own? I looked at my 3D printer, and that's when everything changed. I found a ZeroMouse inspired 3D printable shelf and it only cost $10 to download, so I sliced the file, prepped my printer, and then hit a wall. My micro SD card was fried, so I bought a few replacements and tried again. The first print using PLA was okay, but too rough, so I brought out the big guns, my Anycubic Photon Mono X2 resin printer that I got a while back. I loaded it up, I pressed print, and this time, the shell came out smooth and beautiful. I was so hyped. I speedran the assembly process, but a little too fast. I ended up having to glue together a broken piece, but after a day of trial and error, I got it working. The time to weigh it came. My DIY ZeroMouse came in at just 42 grams. Just 1 gram lighter than the IPI float. Was I disappointed? A little bit. I was hoping for something closer to 20 grams, like the ZeroMouse. So I loaded into a comp Mac, ready to test the fingertip grip out for the first time. And it felt fine at first, but then it didn't. The mouse felt unstable, sluggish, even heavier than the float, despite technically weighing less. The concentrated weight distribution made it feel worse, not better. By halfway through the match, it was so bad that I had to switch back to my regular mouse. That kinda sucked. I had put in all this work, spent extra money, and still didn't get the result I had hoped for, but it did teach me a very valuable lesson. If you're gonna be paying a fraction of the price, you're probably gonna be getting a fraction of the product. So here I am today, with a newfound appreciation for my beautiful IPI float. It's insanely good for the price, and while my homemade ZeroMouse knockoff isn't practical for gaming, it did answer the question, can you build a $170 mouse for just $40? Yeah, you can. It just might not be worth it.